Hello, friends. David Vos here. It's a beautiful day in Oklahoma. I guarantee it. It's still morning, so I'm not sure if it's going to be real hot today, but it's just perfect right now. Real beautiful summer day. I hope you're having a wonderful day where you are, if you can. If you can have a good day. Sometimes it's harder than you think, or harder than they think. They seem to think you should be just fine. They seem to think that you're just weak. Always complaining. Why don't you just do these things, and then you'll be so great, see? Why, you're sad? Why? Because you don't take care of yourself? You didn't go get an education? Become a slave like us? The problem is that these slaves are pretending to be happy. This is where they get you, guys. Listen up very carefully. This may be the key to, I wouldn't say it's the key to all things, by any means. But you rarely run across that key. Be nice if you could find that one. But I've got a different key for you. It's a very important key. It might not be the key to all things. I don't know that there is a key to every door. Some people would deny there is even a door. That's just an illusion. And maybe that's the key. But I've got a key for you. If you'd like to see it. Remember the lady with the brand new pair of roller skates? Well, her friend had a brand new key. And that's all they needed to have a really good time. A brand new pair of roller skates. So simple back then, wasn't it? Didn't take much to make you happy. Well, you weren't the emperor of Rome. You were just a little child playing on your tricycle or your roller skates. But even that can be taken too far. Just playing on your bike, that's fine. You enjoyed it because you were pretending. And sometimes they tell you, stop pretending there, son. Let's start doing something real. Get out there and be a slave like everybody else. But you see, that pretending was the only time that you felt happy playing. Not working. You know what's the difference? Working seems to be a little bit more for keeps. You could get fired. People yelling at you. No leeway. You got to work. But when you're playing, you just do what you want. And you accomplish a lot. Because you only accomplish what's necessary. What you want. And if there's anything else you don't want, you don't do it. I think that's the difference. Playing. But you see, you couldn't get by through life with just playing, could you? Could you just get through life playing? Why, you need to be respectable. Have an honorable job. People in the community look up to you. Why, the best thing would be is if you could be unique so that you're the only person in the world that could climb that mountain. There are people that spent their lives wondering what it is that they could do better than anyone else that's ever lived. And it was so important to them. They spent their entire life trying to do it. Maybe they were an artist. And they painted their first picture. And they said, wow, I'm an artist. Boy, oh boy, I knew I was something. Look at that. Look at those strokes. Look at those colors. Look at the depth. I've got a talent. And people came along and they said, man, you got a talent. Oh, buddy, you got a talent. But you don't need to be painting. You can't make any money doing that. And we don't want to have to take care of you. Okay, I can't carry you now, boy. You're going to have to work on your own and carry your own weight. So get out there and get a job. Become a slave. Well, one guy had an idea, okay, down the road, you know. He thought, well, wait a minute now. What are you saying here? Why is it I'm not going to make it if I don't be a slave? Well, because you won't eat. Don't you want to eat? Don't you want to have a family and live? Well, I don't know. Who's saying I've got to do any of those things? Well, this is the culture. Okay, and part of the culture is that you need to climb the highest mountain and be the last man standing. Or else you'll feel like crap. You're just worthless. You don't want to be one of those poor guys over there, like homeless. What are the guy talking to himself, you know? He's lost all sense of the rules, right? He's not even aware of the rules we're playing under. You're not supposed to talk to yourself. And he's out there playing like children, just a goofball. He's not respectable. There's no honor in that. He didn't climb a mountain. He doesn't even care. He thinks he's on a mountain right now. He's just playing in his mind, talking to himself. Thinks he's happy. Hey, he's got a bottle of something there. Oh my goodness, he's got some whiskey and... Well, go take that away from him because it's not good for him. Okay. Well, the old man's only going to live to be 80 if you let him have that whiskey. But see, we're Jehovah's Witnesses. And we've talked to the head poopah, up there yonder heavens, and we're his mouthpiece. And he said you're not allowed to do any of that. And we're supposed to commandeer you into a back room and have a secret trial and excommunicate you from society. Well, it's a funny thing because that old man, that was the best thing that ever happened to him. Because there was a time when that old man was a slave. He was a slave. Oh, he worked hard. He moved up the ranks. First he got to be ministerial servant, running around carrying mics. Had to wear a nice suit and tie for that because people were watching you. You were a representative of the organization. Okay. You didn't want to bring reproach upon this organization because it's all important. Okay. Why? Of course it is. Just ask anyone. Sir, is this all important, this organization? Yeah, that's wonderful. And I hope you are in the truth, son. And, make sure you attend all the meetings and do your research and study the Watchtower and make sure you answer and go out in field service. And then what? And then what? I'm waiting on pins and needles. And then you'll be allowed to live. I'll be allowed to live? Okay, tell me. What will happen? Well, you see, God, he's very angry. He created all of this world. He's quite angry. The minute he made mankind, he got pretty angry. I mean, even Adam hadn't even walked out of the garden. It must not have been more than 15 minutes. I heard speculating one time that it might have been a very short time, because how long do you think Adam and Eve could go walking around naked without having some cohabitation? Probably wouldn't 15 minutes, right? Because everything that happened before the children came had to have been a very small, very narrow time. And so Adam and Eve were standing around this tree that they had just consumed the fruit of. And boy, oh boy, he was angry. He cast them out in his fury. He swore in his wrath, in his fierce and heavy wrath. He said, I don't want you, Adam, stand up here and talk to me. Look at me when I'm talking to you, Adam. Who the hell you think you are? I just got through creating you out of nothing. I am God. And you're a worm, Adam. Oh, Jacob, you worm. And don't you start thinking that you can be anything like me. Okay? I'm a loving creator. And I'm going to make sure that, look, I hate you so much, I'd like to wipe you off the face of the map right now, Adam and Eve. I really would. Okay? But, you know what? I'm going to do you one better. I'm going to let you suffer. Now, you don't have to. Okay? There's probably a way in this world. I don't know. No one's ever found a way, but then again, we've probably been under the wrath of some angry deity most, if not all the time that we've been here. No one's ever tried anything else. But Yahweh made it very, very certain that we wouldn't be able to have any good times, right? It would be tough. Because the garden was a protective area. You know, it was just to show you that God could give you good things if he wanted to. And he could be kind and great. And he could make such amazing things. But you need to understand you need to really appreciate all of this stuff that I'm giving you, Adam and Eve. And when I give you a direct order, like don't eat that apple over there, then you better not do it. Okay? Even if within your very being itself, something is crying out to you. Something, you got so inquisitive, you wanted to know something. Truth, knowledge. Okay? That's a strong urge as well. It's a pretty strong urge to obey somebody when they're breathing down fire and brimstone on you. But it's also very difficult to ignore that quest within you. And you had a choice, and you made the wrong decision. You should have just got in line with the rank and file. You should have just did your job. The problem is, though, you didn't want to. Well, you ungrateful human? Well, the problem is that I was created this way. Yahweh, you gave me a body that needs sleep. Right? I get tired and I get hungry, and I don't work very well when I'm hungry. And then you made all these beautiful colors and it's like glitter everywhere and all these cute little animals and stuff, and I'm running around trying to look at everything. And then I get hungry, and I'm drawn out by my own desire. And then what happens? Oh, sin gives birth. Oh, buddy. See, but that's your fault, even though the Lord made you that way. And yeah, I mean, not only that, but you were only, as we said, 15 minutes old. You probably didn't have enough wisdom yet to know what to do. And, but, maybe his problem was he wanted to be better than Eve, right? Like, oh, I did everything God told me. I'm better than you. Right? And Eve's like, yeah, but I already ate from the tree, and therefore I've got to make another excuse up. So I'll say, well, I was enticed. Okay? It's hard to explain if you've never been enticed. But it's almost like hormones. Yeah, it's like something like, I don't know. We don't have this word, right? We were just made. And we don't understand our biological self. But it seems like there's something like a magnet or something that's like drawing me to these things. And the very things that you're telling me not to do. It seems kind of like a trick, if you ask me. So, yeah, it's been going on for a long time. Nobody really knows what's going on. Pretty hard. I used to think about that when I was a little kid. I used to think, well, why did Adam and Eve do that? You know? How stupid. You ruined it for everybody now, right? I never questioned why did Yahweh do that, right? I mean, I could have done that. And look, we're already in this situation. It don't matter who you blame. But, Yahweh's not going to be happy with anybody anyway. We all die. So you might as well just tell the truth. The truth is that maybe it was Yahweh's fault. Why did Yahweh create a man, put a tree that was longed for, that Adam and Eve yearned for? I mean, what could that be? What kind of a tree would that be? Well, maybe sex, right? So they're both naked. They're standing there naked. Now, it's one thing if you're already married to somebody else and you're tempted. But this was Adam's wife, right? This was Adam's wife. So maybe there's been a misunderstanding. Maybe this is too difficult to understand. Like, we need to go back over the rules. What did Adam and Eve do wrong? I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with eating fruit, because you probably would have to eat fruit to live. And you say, well, you shouldn't eat that fruit. Well, why? Because it's poison? Oh, no, because that one's knowledge. So the only thing that Adam and Eve did was partake of knowledge, which evidently makes you like God. And the fact that they had the capacity to learn means that they were already like God in any way, right? So what are we quibbling over here? I can't really find the problem. But then again, it's the same thing no matter where you go. But and you start thinking about stuff like that. I mean, it may sound like just a bunch of phrases that mean nothing. But to me, it's like a Rubik's Cube of ideas. Now, one idea contradicts the other, so they don't go together. But if you keep working that cube, I think one day you'll find a way where all of those answers go together with their questions. But that's another thing that I've noticed too, and there's a lot of people are looking for answers. And at a very young age, I went about it a little differently. Instead of looking for answers, I didn't do that all the time. Sometimes I did, I have to admit. But I also realized that it was quite profitable to start looking for questions. Because as I went forward in life, I began to see that a lot of people weren't asking the right questions. For instance, one of the biggest questions that everyone always has is, why am I here? And that's a question, okay, which evidently they claim has no answer, right? Because it's subjective. My way of going about that was to say, well, it's the wrong question. You should probably ask, why wouldn't I be here? If we would just ask that question all the time, why wouldn't I be here? I mean, it's just as legit of a question, isn't it? I mean, we don't know the answer to either one. They're both questions. But why spend your life asking, why are you here? When you could ask, why not? I know it may not strike you the way it did me, but then there was the other one, the other big question, which is, how did I get here? And I noticed that there were lots of people running around the world trying to figure out how we all got here. Even the scientists, right? Like, well, let's see, it must have been a big bang. And somebody else came along and said, well, no, that had to be a pretty big bang. Right? The whole world. And I thought, big bang? What does that mean? What does it have to do with how we got here? I mean, what are you talking about? If it was the biggest bang you ever heard in your life, I don't know how that's going to prove that you should be here. I don't know what you're even talking about. And yet this very highfalutin, powerful, intelligent geniuses working at the Wilhelm Institute thought that was a very good question. But, you know, I took the cue from Descartes, and I said, I think, therefore I am. I couldn't get around that one. I must be. Something must be, and that something must be me. I don't know about you, but, you know, I think, therefore I am. That sounded good to me. I was satisfied with that. So I know I am. What if that's all we need to know? I mean, it'd be like having an ice cream cone. And, you know, you're enjoying it, and it's like, oh, this is wonderful. Okay. But instead of enjoying it and licking it and enjoying it, you're constantly sitting there looking at it and go, why did I get this ice cream cone? And, you know, would it be okay if I ate it? I don't know. I feel like, you know, this can't be true. It's too good to be true. Why? How did I get this amazing thing in my hand? And it's like, you're sitting there debating why you have this ice cream cone, and pretty soon it melts and it's gone. Right? The one thing you darn sure knew was that you had an ice cream cone. And all you had to do was lick it and enjoy it. Stop asking so many questions, is kind of what I'm trying to say. Maybe we should just stop asking so many damn questions. You know, oh, well, what's beyond the moon and what's beyond the star? Who cares? Sometimes we don't need to know. It's like, I don't know. You get curious, right? There's plenty of curious things. But it really, sometimes it just turns out to be a mind tease. Maybe we weren't really, maybe we just have to accept the fact that we can only know what we know. And we don't know what we don't know. Maybe we just have to accept that. I'm alive now. I'm breathing. I'm not in pain. And for this one moment, all is fine. Everything is wonderful. The only problem is what is going to happen at 9 a.m. sharp Thursday morning, 4 years from now. Why, it could be the end of the world. We could all just die. Now, that's you have to admit, that's a pretty big, tall order, and we should probably think about that. Okay? It's something we need to think about, because, if we don't think about it, then we'll just be living and enjoying ourselves all this time, and all of a sudden Thursday will come, and 9 a.m., and it'll happen, and it'll boom, and it'll take us unaware. Right? And we don't want that. So let's just sit here and think about this, and fret over it, and worry, and wring our hands, cry. Maybe we'll write a book, because we're probably like the only person in the whole world that's ever come up with the solution of this problem. What's going to happen at 9 o'clock on Thursday, 4 years from now? Well, this man's figured out the puzzle. Now, when that day comes and it doesn't happen, we go back to our business for a moment until somebody else comes up with another idea that we can't figure out, and we all go out and buy his book and read it, and, have you read that book? Oh, wow. Did you know that billions of people are dying, starving in some country over there, third world? Yes, it's terrible. Probably need more prisons, that's what I would say, yes. More abortions and more schools, more roads. Well, how are we going to get roads and schools? Well, you're going to have to all be slaves. Well, that sounds reasonable. But to be a slave or not to be a slave, that is the question. Now, if the only way that I can have all of this infrastructure throughout the world, and this swirly slide that goes into the water, with heated water, by the way, it's heated, it's wonderful. It's got little jets, and you just get your back up there and just sit against the jets. It's wonderful, and you can have a glass of wine. And the only way we're going to have this wonderful thing that we're imagining in our minds is we're going to all have to become slaves. Seems like an equitable arrangement. Except that when I look at the people doing this, I don't see them happy. They look disgruntled. Some of them their backs are bowed down from something. It looks like they're sitting on their shoulders, and there's nothing there. They're walking around. They can barely move. They're crying, but nobody is crying in public. Go down to a busy street in New York City or Chicago or LA, where probably where you'll find some of the most downtrodden in the world. People that are literally so lonely. They have, they're around millions of people just up and down the streets, just people walking by, but nobody says hello. Nobody knows each other. They go down an alleyway. They get their keys out, unlock this iron door. They got to go through 3 locks, up a hallway and some stairs that it stinks like somebody's, using it for an outhouse. And they get all the way winding around and around 7 stories and get to this one little door that got their number on it. And they go inside and they shut the door behind them. It's like a small little apartment. There's no windows, except for one window above the kitchen sink. And it only reminds you that you're living in a land full of factories and smog, and you see the ants running to and fro, and they're all going to work. Have you ever wondered why ants do what they do, or bees, or flies, or Mr. Fly, why do you just keep flying around like that? Night and day, blah, blah, blah. Do you have any idea what you're doing? And the fly said the most interesting thing. I think it's very telling. He said to me, well, I don't know, but I was told that this is what I do, and I have to do this. This is what my brother does, and my father did, and his father. And I'm going to continue doing this, by George, until I die. For a fly I was born, and a fly I shall die. And I thought, well, that settles it then. So humans were created to be slaves. And a slave we were born, and a slave we shall die, and there is just no other way to do it. So I suppose you should just get used to it. Except for, as I began to ponder that and almost, admittedly starting to become resigning myself to that possibility. And I was just at the point of going over and putting my chains on, and handcuffing myself against the wall and waiting for the police to come and take me away, so I could go into a solitary confinement and do my part for civilization. Because how would the world turn round and round if we didn't all do our part? And then it dawned on me. Remember that little boy? That little boy that never knew anything about work or getting ahead? He's just playing. And I thought, well, okay. What if we just played? What if all the people in the world stopped working and we just played? Well, Dave, how are we going to go to the moon doing that, if everybody's playing? We got to have smart people like Elon Musk, right? And buy up whole cities and put all this rock in a furnace, melt it down Okay, and then make long beams, and with the beams we'll make big factories, and then we'll hire all these ants to sit around a big ant table. Thinking. How can the ants enslave more ants? Because if we don't figure out how we can get these ants up that tree. Why are we going up the tree, Mr. Ant? Well, because it's never been done before. It's one small step for the ant world, and we've got to get to the top of the tree. Well, I'm not saying it wouldn't be a bad idea. It might be nice up there, and there's probably a good view, right, of the swamp. But what you're telling me is that the only way to get up there, and it's probably going to take, what did you figure? Excuse me, what was our scientist saying there, Mr. Ants? Oh, they were saying it'd probably take 300 years. If all the ants got together and worked on it, we could get ourselves up that tree. Of course, for the next 300 years, we can't be free. We've all got to do our part night and day. And don't worry. You'll probably die in a few days. It won't be too bad. But we're going yonder in the sky up to the great tree. And it's going to be great one day. One day it's going to be great. And the great ant farm in the tree is going to come. And then we'll be all happy, and it'll be wonderful. Of course, we'll all be dead. But our ancestors will enjoy it. Hopefully we can keep our ancestors and, excited about the idea. Because if we were to do this our entire life, and then our children come along and they decide they don't want to do it, then what? Our entire lives were for nothing. But then, the funny thing about ants is that even when they're not working to get their civilization in a tree, when they just go back to doing what ants do, they all just seem to be running around working. Go to the ant, you lazy one. Why, they don't have a leader. That's probably not even true. There probably is an ant leader, right? What is it, the queen? I don't know. But, look, there's a lot of things that puzzle me. And I'm telling you that it seems to me like the same person that created Adam and Eve made the ant. And inside the ant, there must be like a program where it must be something. These ants, they got there's no purpose for them. They're not enjoying themselves. They're not playing. They're not having fun. They're just working. Now here's the dogs and the coyotes and the wolves, and they're running around playing. I think maybe humans are more like ants. I think when humans started living in cities and having rulers, queens, we became more like the ants than we did happy creatures. I wonder what dolphins, what kind of a government they have. They seem to be so happy. They're just doing backflips in the water and stuff. And they're always laughing. How do they do that? I think I'd rather be like animals that laugh. Like hyenas, right? They're running around doing backflips and wrestling and stuff. They seem happy. But these ants, they don't make a sound. They don't stop for a break. Did Yahweh pull a fast one on us and make Adam and put some kind of like program in his gene to make him stupid or something? Because it seems like everybody that I've ever met, it's just like, I've got to go to work. I've got to go to work. I've got to please my master. Right? Every woman I've ever known is like, oh, I'm going to go out and get married and have me a husband. What's a husband? Well, it's my owner. I'm going to have an owner, and he's going to tell me everything I'm going to do in my life. Oh, that's okay. We've got a new way for women to exist, right? No, seriously, this is better. Like the old way where you just had to do everything your husband told you. See, there's a whole nother way that mankind has figured out we should live now. Women can put on, now, not nakedness. We don't like that. Yuck. No. It's actually against the law for people to walk around without clothes on. So don't even try that at home, children. But if you go find you a little cloth, like, you know those things you put for a mask on your face, those little things, just put that on, right? And that's, now you're legal, right? Now, put some music on in the background. No, listen, this is, you could literally be a wealthy person if you could learn this. And you can be happy too. I mean, it looks like you should be happy. I mean, all the girls that are doing it seem pretty happy. You have big smiles on their faces, right? Now, wait a minute. Before you judge what I'm about to say, I mean, come on. You were a slave, and the only way you could live is get a high price from a very expensive seller, right? Go to a really nice farm where you can have a bunch of maidens under you, and, well, look, I can't really talk that up very much because it's slavery. I don't know what else to say about it. So anyway, that's why I'm saying this is so much better. Because now you can get back at these guys. See? Because Yahweh told you not to be messing around, do everything you're told and all of that. But what he didn't know, I guess Yahweh was unaware, but when he made the woman, he made her so beautiful that the guy has to have her. It doesn't matter. I mean, he would die for this woman, right? So you got him right where you want him, right? You just kind of wear something revealing, and you walk in a certain kind of shaggy way, and you just kind of sidle up to him, and you act like, you know, you want this. And then about the time they get that look in their eye, like, yeah, you're like, no. And you walk away, and you just keep them begging, right? And then you say, look, throw some money my way, right? Put a little money there in the garter belt, and you can have all the money you need, right? You don't have to deal with these stupid people, be their slave. But when you were a slave, you didn't have any self-worth. You didn't feel happy. You didn't have any control of your life. That's a really important ingredient in happiness. But you see now, it's the other side. It's like, remember we were talking about the slaves or the working and the playing, right? They're the opposites. Well, here you've got a woman that was enslaved, who now is using her body to enslave all of Facebook. You've got them in the palm of your hands. right? Because at least they think, and that's all that matters is impressions, is the way you feel, is the way you think. I mean, it doesn't matter about reality. If you put a big smile on your face because people think that you're so proud of the fact that the one thing you got going for you is you got a big booty, and really that's all you need in life, and you know it, and they know it. You got them, right? You got them. You win. But the problem is that you're still not happy. You're still not happy. When you were a slave, you weren't happy. And now, as a trickster, I mean, I guess two wrongs don't make a right. I don't know. Maybe that's why we came to this world, to figure this out. And the man's like, yeah, I had to work all my life. And, I'd just rather sit around and drink beer in my basement, right? And collect welfare. Ha ha, I got him now, man. Well, you don't, for some reason, feel any better than you did before when you were working, right? You were a slave. You didn't like yourself. You hated life. And now you're down in your basement on medications. Maybe the moral of the story is that human beings just can't be happy. Maybe it's impossible. Or maybe it's that same theory that we had going there before, which is that we're not asking the right question. Maybe Yahweh didn't create us all. Maybe he's a liar and a murderer from the beginning. And maybe his entire government is bondage and a curse. But since he seems to still be in charge, right? You go to the court and you still got to put your hand on his Bible and swear. And evidently based on that authority, you're going to be sent to jail if you don't do what they say. So what the strangest part about this is that how could you get from telling everybody that this is moral and this is what you have to do in order to have life, and then that ends up proving that nobody can have life because nobody can do this extraordinarily weird thing. And this leads us to the conclusion that since it was the God who made us that way, in other words, our very nature was against the law that he made for us, which actually shows that he only made the law to prove a point. He stuck that tree in the garden and said, now don't eat of it. Ha ha, I knew you would. And now I can torture you, which is what I wanted to do to start with, but I needed some excuse. Why does God need an excuse to torture people that he created if he's almighty? Unless he's not God at all. Unless you're God. Maybe you're God, but here's another problem. There's a little question to, turn that wheel around in your little mouse cage in your head. But if you're God, why are you a slave? How are you so ignorant? How is it that this other being is able to make these rules and then punish you, and then of course the punishment is death? So if Yahweh had made Adam and Adam had disobeyed and then the punishment was death, and then Yahweh kills Adam, then it's like, well, Yahweh failed. He made a man and it didn't work. So what was Yahweh's plan? Well, if Yahweh makes man, and then he's mad at the man, and he kills the man, that would make some sense. Perhaps. Maybe Yahweh would get over it. Like, well, I made a mistake. Okay, I'm not God. But it doesn't matter because there's nobody around that's going to say, oh, you made a mistake because he's God, right? So in some crazy way, I guess only in your imagination, because this is a story, right, in our imagination, God ends up on top that way. But that's not the way it happened. Adam continued to live. Now I wonder why. The only explanation is that God enjoyed torturing Adam. And if he killed him, he wouldn't be able to torture him anymore. See, I remember growing up, in my little cult, and I was taught that God was so loving and merciful, why, he didn't even have to let us live. But in his mercy, he let mankind go on for thousands of years. And this is why, of course, we've got to have more prisons. Because the longer you let this thing go on, the more of these little evil beings are going to run around the earth. And God in his mercy is letting them continue to spawn. So I would say that either we're in quite a predicament here. Either we've got a tyrannical God running around creating us to torture us. And that's the only... And he says we're going to go into the lake of fire. This is the grand finale, right? Or everything we've been told to lie. Yahweh didn't even make us. But he convinced us that he did. And we were like little children. And we believed his lies. And he abused us. And he made us believe everything was our fault. And he made two naked people in a garden by themselves and then got mad because they had children or something. I don't know. And if you say, well, come on, Dave, he lets you have all the fruit of the garden, but of that one tree, he said, don't do it. Why, you should have respect for his law. I say, likely story. Because I don't know why a good and loving God would have set that whole thing up that way. Obviously, this is a parable. But even the parable is enlightening, because if it's a parable of reality, then it's, I guess, saying that reality is stuck with a problem that maybe is like Pandora's box, and once it's opened, it cannot be shut. Perhaps there is no way in the universe for good to be in existence without evil. If so, we're just stuck with this stuff. But there's one good thing. If Yahweh's evil, then there's got to be a good deity somewhere too. And perhaps that was the one that sent Jesus to the earth, because Jesus seemed to be a lot nicer. The problem with Jesus is he went away, and he told us to be strong, that he'd be with us, and he sent this thing called the Holy Spirit. And he told us if we just lived by the Holy Spirit, we'd be fine. But ain't nobody ever figured out what he was talking about. Maybe he was crazy too, all right? Because what the heck is this Holy Spirit thing? But what if it was not that crazy. What if the Holy Spirit is love? And what if he was saying that if you just start loving each other and stop making prisons, everything will be all right? What if he was saying, don't judge one another? What if that's what he said? I think that is what, check it out, but I'm pretty sure that's what he said. Forgive one another. Love one another. I'm pretty sure he said that his Father was not partial and didn't take account of people's sins and write them in a little book. But that he was love, and that he was a light, and there wasn't any darkness at all, and any wrath at all in him. What if he wasn't willing that any should perish? Well, yeah, but Dave, if he's so great and he's God and he wants things to be nice and he loves us, then why isn't it so? Okay, why is it the way the evil God wants it to be? We're down here being tortured. If he's so God, and this one's so not God, then why don't the one that is love, who says he's God, do something? And then we realize, if we really think about it, well, I've met a lot of people that have so much fear, so much guilt, and so much pain. And the only reason why they're not happy is because they just can't give up the guilt and the pain. Maybe because they're hanging on to lies. But why? Why did the people follow Hitler in 1933? Why? Why didn't they just quit? Why didn't they quit? Why didn't they just say no? And the only explanation is that they were as bad as Hitler. They were as bad as Hitler. There was at least a number of people, a large number, like half the people, or a large number, that worked very hard at building Germany to that point. They liked their cars. They liked their dances and the movies and all the luxuries that they had created for themselves. They would go to a ballroom and they would get out in the ballroom and dance, and people would say, "Oh, you're a good dancer." And they'd be like, "Oh, yeah, would you like to come home with me tonight?" And so they really enjoyed playing the game. See, ultimately, whenever you're pretending or playing a game, the whole point is you never let yourself know it's just a game. And then it means that you're working now. But you're working because you choose to do that. Nobody is a slave. Nobody has to be a slave. Nobody's going to be a slave the rest of their life. Like, nobody would say, "Oh, well, my master says I must plunge into the lake of fire and be tortured for all eternity." You'd say, "Forget it." No. Right? But we do it. We plunge into the eternity of this hell because our master tells us we need to do this. Why? There's a trick. There's the only way that Yahweh could have pulled this off is he got a little trick. When he screwed around with the DNA, evidently he put a program in there that like he put in ants. And we're just doing what we're told because we have no choice. And there seems to be a group of people in the world that simply have no choice. They cannot. You can walk right square up to their nose and look them right straight in the eye and say, "Look, do you want to be free?" And they're like, "No. I like wreathing on the floor in this pain, working for my master, because something inside me wants that little thing he's offering me. He's offering me a greedy, luxurious penthouse. I'm not going to ever enjoy it, and I know that. I'm not stupid. But it's like the bee that's drawn to the pollen. It's like the tick that's drawn to my dog's leg. It has no recourse. It's impossible. You can't think for yourself. You don't have a brain. You're doing what you're told because you have no other choice. Now, is that the fate of all men? No, because I do believe in Jesus. But Jesus' message was that we're being deceived. And he's not just saying, I think a lot of people think that, well, you shouldn't be deceived, now it's your fault. It's not even that simple. The flesh is the part that's deceiving you. Not even Hitler, really. It's the flesh. The body you live in. This physical world. Yeah, that's Yahweh, because Yahweh put you in the body and gave you this society, and as long as you're living in this society under his rules, under his government, as long as you go out and murder, there's going to be dead bodies lying around. So therefore there's going to be flies, nasty little flies. If there wasn't any death, there wouldn't be any flies. So Yahweh comes along and he does make stuff, but he seems like he makes bugs and little places of torture. It says in Genesis chapter 1 that Elohim made the heavens and the earth. It doesn't say he made the lake of fire. Nowhere in there. It doesn't say he made hell. Or death. Or flies. All that came after. So while we're standing around down here saying, why, oh why, oh what? Because this world was created evil. Your body that you were put into, that you were lured into, is evil. And as long as you're in this world, you'll be a slave and you'll be miserable. And so when Jesus came along and he said, come and follow me, now you understand why it takes a little bit of thought. Because to start with, you're being deceived, of course. It makes perfect sense that we should love one another and forgive one, and okay, but you can't. You're living in another program. You can't even think for yourself. So what do? Jesus said you have to step out in faith. You have to trust Jesus enough to leave the world and to go get out of the world long enough to where you can close your eyes and not see the evil and not listen, hear no evil, see no evil, and pray and fast and wait for that inner spiritual Christ to speak to you. And when you finally hear his voice, just touch, if you could just touch the fringe of his garment. Most people have never seen Jesus or that other world. They're only seeing this world. And there's no way out. And they're confused and Their eyes isn't even telling them the truth. They can't even think straight. The only path out is that one logical answer, that everything in this world is bad, and the reason I'm feeling like this is because I'm in this world and I got to get out. And Jesus is the only person that ever offered that to me. And Jesus has promised that if I leave this world, it's kind of like being addicted to heroin. If you're a heroin addict, you're not going to say, you know what, I'll just quit. I'll just quit. It's a lot harder than that. You can make your mind up and say, I want to quit. But at least with the heroin, you know what your problem is. You got on heroin and you got to get off. And the answer is very simple. But even with all the facts before you, it's very difficult. This is the same thing here. You're living in a world. You're addicted to everything about this world. You're not even a good person at this point. And you know it. So you can't really say, well, I'll just wait until I feel inclined, right? I don't feel like leaving the world today. I need to go get my bottle of whiskey. I'm craving that. Maybe tomorrow I'll love somebody. Maybe tomorrow I'll be happy. Today I don't have time to be happy. I'm going to drown my sorrows in that bottle right there because it puts me to sleep. See, now, what's going on there? Well, why don't you give up the bottle? Because first of all, it's hard to go through the, withdrawals, but ultimately, you're willing to go through those pains. Why? Because tomorrow you're going to get up and you're going to have the pleasures of this world. There's the problem. You're not getting out of the world because you don't want to leave this world. And so therefore, it's in your heart where the problem lies. It's a choice. You have to decide who you're going to believe. And there are two ways that you can live in this world. And you have to make a choice. You can live in this world, in society, you can go to work, you can be a slave, and if you do that, you'll get addicted and you won't be able to get off of it. It'll be tough. I guarantee it. See, a lot of you think that, well, maybe if I do some more research and I study some more and read some more books or whatever, I'll finally get to where I want to leave this world. And then I'll leave. You'll never want to. Never. Because it's not you, it's your flesh that wants all this. And you are letting your flesh control you, and that is Yahweh. That's the form, this creation, this world. And you're going to go by the rules of this world. You're going to accept all the pain. You're going to accept the hangover, but you'll be right back tomorrow drinking. It's a difficult thing when you finally, with wisdom, with the Holy Spirit, with knowledge and with love and with compassion for yourself, you wake up and you say, I've got to stop this. I know logically that my flesh is in love with all of this evil, but I'm not going to follow after the flesh anymore. I'm done. I'm not going to be paying attention to this world and getting involved in it and getting a job and going to the parties and, popping the pills and just for the high feeling I get or whatever. No, I'm going to stop right now, no matter how much pain, because that's one kind of pain. But I'd rather have that pain just for a little while I go through withdrawals and my eyes start seeing, my third eye starts opening and I begin to see reality and I begin to see flowers and little birds and kindness, cooperation, and happiness. And I know it has nothing to do with this world. But there is one last problem. And that is if you tried to do that on your own, it'd be very difficult. So I think what we need to do is we need to encourage one another. We need to teach our family. And we need to take our whole family and start living after these principles. And don't think it's going to be easy because, even after you haven't had your heroin fix for weeks, you still miss it. It takes a bit of effort. But eventually, you wean yourself off this world. But it's going to be tough. You have to really understand. It's going to take faith, which you can't go on blind faith. It's going to have self-knowledge. You're going to have a reason. It's going to have to be logical. You're going to have to convince yourself that this is the correct way. You're going to have to see the evil in this world and reject it. And be willing to go through a little pain to get off of this. Because it's like growing up and being mature. You know, a child can't do the heavy lifting and the work that a grown-up can do. Sometimes you just have to understand that we have to mature and grow. We grow in grace, and from grace to grace, and from glory to glory. And we learn by the things in which we suffer. You can't have a house without hard work. You build it, and you build it, and you start at the foundation, and it's hard, but you eventually finish it, and the result is just such a great accomplishment and a sense of comfort, knowing that you're safe now. You have to be safe. You can't go out into the wild of Alaska without shelter. You'll die. And if you're going to lay there in the snow and die and wonder why you're dying, just remember it's because when spring comes, you have to start building a house. But you wouldn't do that if you didn't have knowledge. So that's the way this life is. We've all been letting somebody else guide society. Yahweh started making all these rules and we got deceived. And we're building a world that's not fun, it's not good, and we're definitely allowing... I mean, it's worse than just learning wrong. This entire physical world, there's something wrong with it. I really do believe that there are foods that we can eat that give us the wrong hormones or make us more crazy. I think there's a lot of things we could talk about. There's a whole thing like eating right, exercise. We start feeling more free. The cares of this world start dropping off, and we start realizing that we're actually happy sitting on a hard rock, dangling our feet in the water, smelling a flower, and watching our children play. That's a better drug than any other kind of illicit garbage going on in this world that you can find. But until you're sober, you'll never even know that. So we've got to be sober, the scriptures say. We've got to be sober. We got to wake up. It's high time that we wake out of sleep, the Apostle Paul tells us. And that is the answer, my friends. We've got to wake up. And friends, it's time that a few of us wake up. And we need to get together and love one another and show each other and help each other. Because if we don't do this, we'll be enslaved for another 1,000 years to come. But that ain't going to happen in Jesus' name, because Jesus is calling a group of individuals in this particular last days that we're living in. And they're waking up. I hope you get on board and are able to show some strength and some valor, some courage, and shake off this old, rotten, wicked system. And experience the love of Christ that's within us. It's in there. But we're living in a beautiful world, but it's like there's lots of demons and weird anomalies that have sort of infiltrated our world. And then we've got this artificial government and society all around us, and it's just destroying us and our children. And it's high time that we stop it and we understand what's happening. We wake up. But I'm going to go ahead and go, guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. We'll see you tomorrow.